Israelites' passage from slavery to freedom was not as straightforward as the Haggadah suggests. In between Egypt and the Promised Land stood the Midbar, the wilderness. I can imagine their terror confronting this vast, limitless expanse. Sure, they were free from the physical burdens of slavery, but what lay ahead of them? There were no structures like they had built in Egypt, reassuring them of their ability to triumph over nature. No stable hierarchies in which to insert themselves. This unmarked, unmeasured landscape must have evoked a deep fear, perhaps not unlike the fear that we experience when we're on the threshold of a major transition to a new context, graduating college or returning home from the military. And yet, I can also see why the Torah had to be given in the wilderness. God's voice could be heard a lot more clearly in a space defined by absence and silence. In this sense, the wilderness was the perfect place for a new beginning, for a nation coming into being and creating its own narrative. Midrash Bamidbar Rabbah tells us, whoever wishes to acquire Torah must make themselves ownerless, hefker, like the wilderness. That the wilderness is a condition of every revelation. The Kotzker Rebbe interprets ownerless to mean not being touched by human hands or uncultivated. A person who is uncultivated is kind of like a clean slate, someone open to all different possibilities. I think this means that our capacity to be open to Torah is dependent on our ability to cast off our set ways of thinking, to free ourselves from the slavery of our usual thought patterns and be open to new directions and new possibilities. It's not easy to see the world with fresh eyes, to step into the midbar. It can be dizzying and disorienting. But the Midrash reminds me that though we are powerfully informed by our context, by the people, by the cultures and the ideologies that surround us, that becoming aware of and beginning to strip away those influences is essential to truly grasping Torah.